Here's an interesting sentence. Police, 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 police. Yes, that is a real sentence. And if you know what it means, then you've almost certainly heard it before. Or maybe you know the similar sentence using buffalo. These are classic examples of the ambiguity that can arise from homophones. Or are they homographs? And are those different than homonyms? And what about heteronyms and polysemes? And why does English have to be so confusing in the first place? All right, let's see if we can break it down to understand once and for all what is going on here. So I think oftentimes some of the confusion comes from assuming that all of these different things are mutually exclusive. Asking if a word is a homophone or a homograph is like asking if a color is blue or dark. Well, obviously it could be one or the other or both or neither. The question doesn't make sense as an either or. Likewise, homophones and homographs are two distinct properties that can coexist in a word. The word homophone means same sound. These are words that sound the same, such as read and read. The word homograph means same writing. These are words that are spelled the same, such as read and read. A word can be a homophone or a homograph, or sometimes even both. Simple enough, right? So I think the confusion comes in when we introduce the nyms. Homonyms and heteronyms, meaning same name and different name, are basically just subsets of homographs. If a word is spelled the same, a homograph, and also sounds the same, a homophone, then it is a homonym, like a bat or a ball. Part of the problem is that people have started using the term homonym to mean a word that is a homophone or a homograph or both. In which case, homophones and homographs are subsets of homonyms, when it used to be the other way around. But whatever you call them, why do we have all these similar words? Well, it's partly because many English words were borrowed from other languages. And over time, words from different languages that sound similar sort of morphed into homophones. For example, the Old English toi has evolved over time into what we know today as the number 2. And many other homophones and homographs arise from polysemy. Polysemy, let's get that right, which means that a word has several different but related meanings. For example, a permit permits you to do something. We house people in a house, and conflict can be created from opinions that conflict. All of these examples seem likely to have developed from the same root word, but if you use your mouth to drink from the mouth of a river, or if you make a deposit in the bank on that river's bank, are those related? Maybe. It's a little less clear. But let's just leave the technical analysis of what really is a polyseme to etymologists. Just know that polysemes are essentially the antonym or opposite of synonyms. A synonym is two different words with the same meaning, and a polyseme is the same word with different meanings. One problem with homophones is the confusion that can arise in otherwise normal conversation. For example, if I told you my cousin is a painter and his wife is a dancer, which of these couples do you imagine? This can obviously be a problem when trying to communicate effectively, but it's not always a bad thing. It can also be exploited for humor or to make a point, such as in so-called garden path sentences. A garden path sentence is a sentence in which the first half intentionally misleads the reader into parsing the second half incorrectly. Our brains start to make assumptions about the words we're reading before we have all the information. And once we arrive at the end of the sentence, we realize we've gone down a dead-end path, and we need to back up and try again. For example, the old man, the boat. After the first half, the old man, you probably had a picture of an old man in your head. But then when the sentence ended, you likely said, wait, what happened to the verb? So you have to backtrack down the path and see that man is in fact the verb. The sentence isn't about an old man, but the old as a collective group who are manning the boat. Homophones can also be used to make a point, such as the famous line from Ben Franklin when signing the Declaration of Independence. We must indeed all hang together, or assuredly we shall all hang separately. There's not really any confusion about what he means here, but he's using the homophone hang for emphasis and to make a point. If he had said, we must stick together or we'll all be killed, the sentence feels somehow less impactful, and I doubt we'd even know about it almost 250 years later. And homophones and homographs are, of course, the basis for many jokes and puns, such as one of my favorites. The Lord said, come forth, and you will receive eternal life. But John came fifth and won a toaster. Or, did you hear about the fire at the circus? It was intense. And author Lewis Carroll used homophones in Alice in Wonderland and the sequel, Through the Looking Glass, for both humor and to add a general sense of confusion Alice is feeling. The Red Queen began again. How is bread made? I know that, Alice cried eagerly. You take some flour. Where do you pick the flour? The White Queen asked. In a garden or in the hedges? Well, it isn't picked at all, Alice explained. It's ground. Well, how many acres of ground? Said the White Queen. You mustn't leave out so many things. Now, this seems like it might make learning English impossible, and it certainly can cause difficulties, but I think there's some benefit to it as well. If I refer to, say, the leg of a table, you could probably work out what I mean, and that's arguably easier than learning a whole new word for everything that has a leg. So, going back to the original sentence, what does all of this have to do with police or buffalo? Well, these sentences are taking advantage of the fact that the words police and buffalo are homonyms. Yes, homonyms, they are homophones and homographs that can be nouns, verbs, or adjectives. The word police most often refers collectively to the people that enforce the laws, the cops, if you will. But it can also be the verb for what the cops do. They police the streets. And if cops watch over other cops, then the police are policing the police. And in Poland, there's a town named Police. So the police in that town would be the police, just like the London police or the Chicago police. And the internal affairs group in police would be the police, which are policing the police. And if they're all watching over each other, then the police, who are policed by the police, are also policing the police. And finally, we can remove some extraneous words to get police. You can do the same thing with any homophone that can be a noun, adjective, and verb. A classic example is buffalo. These are the main two examples I've seen, but I also came up with another one that admittedly doesn't really make much sense, but is nevertheless a proper sentence. Use. If anyone can think of another example, or if you have a favorite pun that employs a homophone or a homograph, I'd love to hear about it here in the comments. They police the streets. Wow, it's definitely more windy out here than I was expecting. I hope the male child in the sky warms things up pretty soon.